Thank you. After such an inspiring talk by about Chandrayaan, I don't think I can even get close to it. Thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon. I know it's a dull afternoon. We have all had lunch not long ago. We have not got coffee. But I'm going to ask you a simple question. Does anybody know what is the theme of today's conference? Anybody? Cyber? No. Sir, you're a CCM, sir. No. Okay. The conference theme, as Dr. Satya, I think he's gone down, was very clear. Cyber Freedom 2030. We have to have cyber freedom by the year 2030. That is what we are talking about today. Oh, there's a timer here. Okay. So given that that is the theme of cyber freedom in 2030, the instinct for all of us is to think of, okay, we need to have more firewalls, controls, right? Firewalls, encryptions, compliance certifications, risk analysis, risk assessments. Those are important. Yeah, I'm not denying that. Those are necessary, but they are all defensive mechanisms. True or false? Whatever you deploy as a tool or a compliance, it is just a defensive mechanism. Cyber freedom, in my opinion, is something larger. Let's put it this way. Security defends systems. Freedom defends continuity, right? Security is reactive. It reacts to situations and incidents. Freedom, on the other hand, ensures that disruption does not break continuity. That's what a BCP and DR is, right? We are all security professionals here, GRC professionals. I'm trying to make sure that it's not too complex. So in the next decade, for the next 10 years, digital systems are not going to merely support our economy. The last decade has been more of growing the digital infrastructure, public infrastructure. It has been supporting the growth of our economy. But in the next decade, especially now with generative AI, I mean, everybody's probably on Gen AI right now, trying to record all the speeches and put together some sort of precis that you can send it to your team. It is going to define it. Cyber freedom, digital systems are going to be the definition of our next decade. And the problem is, if they fail at scale, our digital infrastructure is growing at scale. If the failure happens at scale, institutions across sectors, they're going to get strained. The markets will slow down. I'm sure the market's still down from what Mr. Trump did along with Mr. Netanyahu the last few days. It's going to slow down even more. Trust weakens, right? People stop trusting. How many of you purchased anything after the Marks and Spencer cyber breach last year? Not many. Marks and Spencer lost 500 million pounds over 6 months as a result of their breach. Why? There was no trust. Customers stopped trusting them. In a digital economy, and India is increasingly becoming a very digital economy, resilience is not an IT or an InfoSec function. Today, if you talk about cybersecurity, everybody says, oh, that's the IT department, talk to the CTO, talk to the InfoSec team, talk to the CISO. Not anymore. It is not going to be, it is going to be a leadership function. It's going to become a national capability. That's where trust is, that is where resilience is, that is where security is. I'm sure many of you heard about Carl Sagan, a sci-fi writer. I'm a big science fiction buff. He said something very significant in the 60s, and it is relevant even today. He said that we have a global civilization in which the most crucial elements depend on science and technology profoundly. Not just depend, but profoundly depend. Now, why is that a problem? Dependence creates extraordinary power, right? But it also creates structural vulnerability. The question before us is simple today. When we have grown digitally the last decade, have we strengthened our institutions at the same pace? We have grown, we have got dependencies. What about the foundation? We have started building rapidly. How safe, how strong is our foundation? So, in my opinion, again, cyber freedom is about structured and structural resilience in a digital nation like India. So, cyber freedom, in my opinion, consists of three different things: sovereign capability, institutional maturity, and public trust. As I said earlier in the last slide, cyber freedom, if it is structural, it rests on three foundations: capability, institutional maturity, and public trust. You cannot have cyber freedom if even one of them fail. You cannot survive without capability or maturity or trust. And capability means more than just adoption. It means comprehension. How many of the boards today, boards of organizations, how many of the CXOs today, other than the CISO, comprehend security, comprehend resilience, comprehend information security and digital privacy, data privacy? Not many. And that is something that we need to build. That is something that is lacking. Do we understand digital infrastructure that we use? How many of us understand the digital infrastructure behind UPI or UI, what Aadhaar does for us, or your digital signature that you use frequently on various platforms? How many of the, perhaps many people in this room do, but what about the people outside? What about the senior members of organizations? Right? That is important. That comprehension is important. Can we operate through disruption? If UPI fails, I don't know how many people of you carry cash today, but I don't carry a lot of cash at all, not since COVID. And if there is no UPI, there is no credit card, I don't pay, right? Especially if it's beyond 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees. So you need to make sure that any infrastructure that is so important doesn't disrupt. Or if it does, you should know how to survive through it. That is important. And the most important thing is recovery. Can we recover from such a disruption without being paralyzed? This is sovereign capability. What is institutional maturity? It can only be revealed when you are under pressure. If there is a certain audit, if there is a DPBI, Data Privacy Board of India audit, how will you respond to it? That is maturity. That is the only way you can trust maturity. Not an ISO 27001 audit or a 42001 audit. You know when it's coming. You prepare a month before. You make sure that you have all the evidences. You make sure that you have all the meeting notes. You make sure you have everything ready for the audit beforehand. That is not disruption. That is forewarned. There is no pressure there. A little bit pressure, I'm sure, but not real pressure. Real pressure is what happened at Marks and Spencer and Jaguar Land Rover, or many of the cybersecurity companies that failed after the Salesforce OAuth drift. 300 companies were affected last year. That is where the pressure is. The pressure is when it happens. How are you going to recover? That is the key. That is where maturity comes into play. That is the only true test of maturity at the institution level. It's not just the CISO, it's not just your SOC team, it's not just your CTO, it's at the organization level. That is what is missing today. Digital risk must be understood and owned at the highest levels in the organization. How many of your organizations today own digital risk at the board or the CEO level? Raise of hands. Okay, out of this room, about 50, 60 people, I see 4 hands. That is what I'm talking about. This will not do. This will not do. You cannot survive an audit. It needs to be owned at the CEO, at the managing director level. They need to understand it. They need to be held accountable, or they should know who is accountable. That is important. And without that, there is no trust. Trust is not just having certifications. Trust is not, I am ISO 27001 certified. Trust is having resilience. Trust is why public use your infrastructure. We trust UPI, NPCI. We trust UIADI, UIDAI, whatever. One of those two. That is why we allow Aadhaar-based authentication. I do not trust UIDAI. My fingerprint is never on any system. I cannot honestly get biometric authorization done using Aadhaar. I turned it off because I don't trust that. But I'm okay with a phone-based authorization. See how trust becomes very important? If you don't trust NPCI, will you connect your bank account to a UPI application like Google Pay or Bheem? You won't. That is what public trust is. Citizens, enterprises, organizations, they all believe it will work. All of us believe that this is going to work. It's going to make sure that we are safe. That is why it works. If that trust is not there, it's not going to work. So, freedom protects system. No, security protects system. Freedom protects the stability of the ecosystem. It goes one step further. So that is the difference between security and freedom. Now I know we have a lot of partners here. I know we have a lot of vendors like myself, and they're all going to hate this slide. Because I am confidently saying this, though it's my business, that's what Elytra Security does. Cyber freedom is engineered. You cannot purchase it. Okay? I do provide ISO audits, DPDPAs, assistance, everything that most people do. I advise CISOs, I advise CISOs, I advise CTOs, but I will confidently tell you this. You cannot purchase freedom. You can't purchase security either. It's uncomfortable. You can have budgets. You can buy a lot of tools. You can have tool sprawl, which is a very common thing that's happening among large organizations. They have an EDR, they have a SOC, they have SIM. They have a lot of tools. Not enough. It's not enough. That is not what cyber freedom is. That is just posturing. In the US, there was a very common term used post 9/11. It was called security theater. So before 9/11, I've lived there through 9/11. Before 9/11, one could go right up to the gate of any airport, right up to the gate to welcome, family visiting, or send people off. You would have seen it on all these TV shows. You can go up to the gate. No questions asked in the US. After 9/11, that changed. That is when they said, oh, you need a ticket to pass security. You can still enter the airport. You can still, unlike in India, you can enter an airport all the way up to security in the US, even today. And many people question why the TSA was there. And the most common answer was security theater. You see, the problem is TSA, unlike in India where we have CISF, in the US, TSA gets paid by the hour. They are hourly based workers. They do not belong to any defense force. Like in India, we have CISF, the US. In Germany, you see the national police manning the security gates. In the US, they are contractors, private contractors who get paid hourly wages. So your TSA's pay depends on the state that you're working in. They don't care about security. They don't know. Okay, and I asked this question even here. So when I entered this morning, we had the scanner, put my bag in, somebody was sitting on the other side, the bag came out, I took it. And then there is a person in every mall and a hotel with a mirror who goes, looks under your car. I have one question to all of them. What are you looking for? If I really had a bomb, do you think I'm going to put a timer on it which is counting down so you can see it in your mirror? Anybody going to do that? No, right? If they look into my bag and if I have C4 there, will they know how to recognize it? No. But it still happens because it's security theater. It gives you a false sense of security. That is what it is. When you purchase tools, when you purchase certifications, I did not misstate that. People do purchase ISO 27001 certificates in India. They are available for as less as 30,000 rupees. Okay, I'm sure most of you know this. There are unscrupulous elements over there who will sell you a piece of paper with ISO 27001 certification for 30,000 rupees. That is security theater. It would not stand scrutiny if there is a rigorous vendor evaluation done. But at the surface, it passes. 30,000 rupees, imagine. ISO 27001 requires rigorous evidence-based audits. Even in a smallest organization, it's a 2-day audit. And it just increases as the number of locations and people increase. That is not even physically possible for 30,000 rupees. But you get it. I don't know what else to call it. It is security theater. That is why I say you cannot purchase cyber freedom. You have to engineer it from the ground up. It has to be built in as a culture in the organization. Oops, I have only 1 minute. I have to rush. I'm sorry. The team knows I can, and Velu sir is looking daggers at me. He'll pull the plug anytime now. The last time I spoke in Chennai, I went on and on for half an hour and he was very upset about it. So can I continue? Okay, thank you. Huh? Okay. Okay, one more thing is AI, and that is something that's close to my heart. I'm a 42001 certified auditor, and I can tell you for sure, 80% of the companies in India, across the world today use AI, and they don't have a clue what they are doing with it. They don't have a clue what they're putting in it. They don't have a clue where it is going. They don't have a clue how it is training their model. They have, a nutshell, they have no clue. Okay? It's free. So you got Gemini, you got Copilot, you got OpenAI, you got everything. It's free, so I will use it. That's sad. Very, very sad. There is no guardrails built into any of this system. And that is what all of us in this room have to do. We are the security vanguards of the organization in one way or the other. We have to educate them. This is a very insecure thing. Please stop doing it. They're going to have shadow AI, they're going to have shadow IT, no doubts, but you can try to put some sort of a control there. And that is the biggest risk to cybersecurity. I mean, second biggest risk. The biggest risk to cybersecurity is all of us humans. The second biggest risk is generative AI. So cyber security, cyber freedom is engineered with precision. You cannot purchase it. It needs discipline, not luck, not optimism. As the head of ISRO said, you cannot depend on luck. You have to learn, you have to be disciplined, and that is the only way things will improve. You can't depend on luck. Yeah, luck will work once or twice, but it's not going to be good. So, my last slide. So by 2030, we must move from what we have today, which is compliance. Most organizations have compliance. We have to move to capability. We have no option. You have to move from compliance to operational capability, move from tools to architecture at the organization level, and from awareness, which is where we are today. We are all here talking about it. We have got ads running with 1930, call this number if you are scammed. From there, we have to move to accountability. We'll have to, at the organization level, it's not just awareness. You need to identify somebody, which is what DPA is doing. You need to identify a person in your organization for data privacy. DPA, you cannot have a team. You cannot have, okay, we have a group. No, you need a DPO. It means a single person for security, single person for audit, privacy. A lot of people talk about DPA. I've been writing about it for more than a year. But there are few things. DPA compliance does not depend on tools, does not depend on checklists, does not depend on policies, does not depend on consent management alone. You can have all the tools you want, you can have all the paper you want. It has to be a discipline within the organization, and that is important. That is the only way we can achieve our goal from the conference. Digital infrastructure in India today is now strategic infrastructure. UPI is strategic. UIADI is strategic. Well, a couple of months ago, Amadeus got hacked in Bangalore. Not got hacked, an employee took data code away. That is strategic. Amadeus software powers half the reservation systems in the world for airlines. That is strategic. That is strategic infrastructure. You cannot think it is just digital anymore. It demands board level ownership, which again, going by this room, 4 out of 50 is 2%. And I suspect that if everyone else was here, it would be even lower, right? So it demands board level ownership. It does not say, I've got a CISO, I've got an IT. This is what I hear from MSME customers, right? I've got an IT guy who has no clue he got phished, okay? But he is the guy who will take care of their security. Ridiculous. But it demands ownership at the highest level of the organization if it has to make a difference for us as a nation in 2030. Cyber freedom cannot be just declared by going to conferences and saying we are certified. It has to be built with precision. It has to be built structurally, deliberately, and responsibly. Ultimately, it's not about defending data alone. It has to defend the entire ecosystem. And that is the only way you can defend a digital civilization and the digital nation like India is. That's my time. Thank you very much.